Mike, thanks for coming in today.
Yeah, thank you for the opportunity, Mark. That's awesome.
All right, so you're applying for a project manager role at our
Yep.
company here.
That's right.
And I'd love to know, tell me about a time you had to manage or resolve internal conflicts.
Sure. Well, in my previous role with the Archdiocese of St. Paul in Minneapolis, we had a small team of people that had much different personalities, and it was part of my role is to make sure that everyone kind of had a cohesive work environment and could get along. And so when someone has one way of attacking a problem and someone has a completely different way, it's trying to work with the two people together to say, okay, this is what you can bring to the table, this is what you can bring to the table. And a specific example of that was we were launching a new training program, and one of my colleagues said we need to do it this way with a lot of hands-on, in-person training, and someone else said, no, we need to focus more on the online interface. And so it's just really trying to figure out that middle path to bring both sides together and blending the two sometimes. And if someone really pushes back, say this is what we're going to do because this is the best way to move forward as a team and to deliver the results we need.
Were you comfortable with that process, or was that hard for you?
I was mostly comfortable just because I felt like I had figured out after kind of meeting with both people and analyzing the best way to move forward, and I felt confident in what we needed to do. Sometimes working with those strong personalities with people who are very intelligent and have a lot of good experience can be difficult to try to get them on the same straight and narrow path. And I think it's good to have healthy dialogue and debate, but at a certain point you have to say, okay, this is what we're doing and we're going to stick with it unless something blows up in our faces.
Sure. Okay. Part of this job asks you to manage multiple projects. Can you tell me about a system or a strategy that you use to do that well?
Yeah, absolutely. In my current role at Allina Health, I wear a lot of different hats. I help researchers who are interested in research applying for specific awards, and also help them on the post-award side to make sure they comply with budget and compliance requirements so that we don't get a negative finding on a federal or industry audits. And I write policies and procedures, and I run some team events. So it's a lot of different things, and some days all those different competing interests kind of come to a head, and I have to juggle back and forth. I use a lot of different kinds of checklists and lists to make sure that I'm prioritizing things and not forgetting something that needs to be done with one task, because I have a meeting on policies at 9 a.m. and then I have a meeting on a budget at 10 a.m. and I need to make sure I don't drop the ball and forget what I'm supposed to do during the lunch hour. So I'm a big fan of documenting what I'm trying to do and then making sure that I'm actually achieving those ends to make sure that all the tasks get completed, and then understanding what the priorities may need to be to shift things up. All of us like to have things done in a timely manner most of the time, but sometimes that's not possible because there's a limited amount of time in the day. And so sometimes you got to be willing to kind of say, okay, I understand you need this at this time, but we're going to have to, I'll get you the result tomorrow, and just communicate that up front.
Okay, very good. Tell me how do you see your role as a project manager, both internally and externally, and what differentiates those two positions?
Sure. I think externally, I see myself representing the company very well in a very professional and credible way, and I think that I've delivered that in other places. Part of the reason why I have a beard is because it makes me look a little bit older and more experienced. At my first couple jobs, people would often ask if I was an intern, and so I decided I need to do something to age up a little bit, and so a beard tends to help with that. And so just trying to exude that level of professionality and experience that good companies like to have for their employees, and it can kind of level the playing field, because oftentimes I'm going to be working with people who have much more experience and insight than I do, but I don't want to appear as if I'm brand new to the field. Internally, I want to be a good influence on my team members and really have a good working environment with them, and really build up the culture, and so that when we get along well together and work together, when we encounter difficult things in our jobs, we'll be able to stick through it. An example of that is at my current job, I help plan a lot of our social and fun events, and it kind of just fell in my lap because no one else wanted to do it, but I really tried to make it something that builds the culture of our team, whether that's doing a happy hour every other month, or this past week we did a Super Bowl party, and we have a very diverse team, and so I knew that there were going to be people who love football and who don't love football at all and have never watched a game. For a Super Bowl party, that could make for an interesting mix, but we did some games and stuff to really have it be one fun party for everyone, and 18 of our 20 team members participated, so it was a very fun event. And I think that when you have these kind of team building events, even though you're not producing tangible results in that moment for the organization, you're really building that team, you're making it be a place that people want to go to work and spend time with each other, because we do spend a lot of time together, for better or worse. And doing those kind of things really allow us to build that cohesion, so that when we have a deadline that we're pushing really hard, we know that we have a good working relationship with the person we're sitting next to.
Great. Just tell us when we're out of time, by the way. Give me an example of a project management task or duty that fell apart. And how did you recover, or were you able to recover?
Sure. So at the Archdiocese, when I started there in January of 2015, they said my first project was going to be to launch a new online platform where people could submit to a background check, sign a code of conduct, and register for safe environment training. And they said, you've got 6 months until we launch. We're launching on June 1st. And so I was like, okay, that seems reasonable. Little did I know how much work actually needed to be done with that. And it was quite a challenge, and I was pushing really hard to try to get that done. But then you start to see all these leaks in the system, and you're like, ooh, we're either gonna have a cataclysmic meltdown, or we're gonna have to push this back. And so you start to look at the different possibilities and try to come up with pros and cons so that you can report up to the people who ultimately are gonna make the final call and say, if we launch, I think this is gonna happen. If we don't launch, we are gonna have to do some apologies and mea culpas, but it's gonna prevent us from having a big fallout. And so we were able to do that, and even though we didn't meet our target of June, we pushed it back to September, and the launch went much smoother because we had a lot more time to test things out and to get feedback from different Catholic parishes and schools to make sure that the system would work for them. And even though it wasn't the result we wanted, and it was a pretty trying time, and a lot of long hours and difficult conversations with people, it ended up being much better results. I think it's better to do things slowly and right the first time than to try to put things together piecemeal and have it all fall apart, and then you spend way much more time or have really bad results from that.
Great. All right, I'll ask you one more question.
Sure.
Part of a project manager's job is to keep the project on schedule. What would you do if your boss or your boss's boss was the problem? How would you approach that?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. I think that I've worked with a bunch of different personalities in my career so far, and I've established different ways of trying to get people to accomplish things in a timely manner. I know that some people, you can send them an email list of things they need to get done at a certain time, and it'll get done no problem. But if I send that to the person sitting next to them, that list is going to get buried in an inbox of 1,000 emails. And so I know I start to have that initial conversation and say, okay, we have this coming up in a couple weeks. Here's what I'm going to do. This is what you're going to do. And try to get that buy-in and feedback and understanding, knowing that I'm going to continue to have to follow up. So I think if I had a situation like that with the boss, I would try to first understand what their personality was and how they like things delivered to them, so that they have the resources available to them to make the decisions that they need to make, but also trying to figure out the different ways that I'm going to have to work with them and push them along to make sure that's done the right way, whether that's if they like things done in a list and a lot of detail, I can do that, or if it's, okay, we're going to talk casually first here, but then you're going to see an invite for a meeting on Tuesday because we've got to start figuring out how to get this done. Then at that meeting, I'm going to say, okay, these are my tasks. Is that the correct understanding? Get that buy-in from my boss or my boss's boss, and then ask if they understand that this is what they need to do, and make sure that I I continue to follow up with that and just try to do my best to keep them on task, but also be very respectful because they have a lot of expertise and knowledge that I